What if one of the most popular fat loss hacks on the internet does almost nothing for fat loss? For years, you've probably heard it everywhere. Drink apple cider vinegar before meals. It boosts metabolism. It melts belly fat. It detoxes your body. It sounds simple. It sounds natural. It sounds like a shortcut. And that's exactly why millions of people believe it. But here's the uncomfortable question nobody asks. If apple cider vinegar really melts fat, why isn't obesity disappearing? Because science tells a very different story than social media. Today, we're going to break this myth apart completely. Not emotionally, not with opinions, but with what actually happens inside your body. And the truth is not what most people expect. Chapter 1. Where the apple cider vinegar myth started. Apple cider vinegar didn't become famous overnight. It built its reputation through fitness influencers, detox trends, natural health blogs, and viral weight loss claims. Most of these claims come from small studies or misinterpreted data. For example, some research suggests vinegar may slightly reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes, slow stomach emptying, increase short-term satiety. And from that, a massive leap was made. If blood sugar is lower, fat must be melting. But that conclusion is not scientifically accurate, because blood sugar control is not equal fat loss. They are related systems, but not the same outcome. Chapter 2. What apple cider vinegar actually does. Let's be very precise. Apple cider vinegar contains acetic acid. In small amounts, it may slightly slow carbohydrate digestion, slightly reduce glucose spikes after meals, slightly increase fullness in some people. That word is important, slightly. We are not talking about fat loss. We are talking about small metabolic shifts that may affect how fast food leaves your stomach, how blood sugar behaves after meals. But here's the key point. None of this directly burns fat, because fat loss requires a sustained calorie deficit over time, not a temporary digestion change. Chapter 3. The fat loss truth people don't want to hear. Fat loss is not mysterious. It comes down to one principle: energy balance. If you consume more calories than you burn, you gain fat. If you consume fewer calories than you burn, you lose fat. That's it. Apple cider vinegar does not erase calories, block fat absorption significantly, or increase metabolism in any meaningful long-term way. So even if it slightly reduces appetite, the effect is too small to create major fat loss alone. Chapter 4. Why people think it works. This is where psychology enters the picture. When someone starts using apple cider vinegar, they often also become more health conscious, eat slightly smaller meals, reduce junk food intake, start tracking behavior. So when weight loss happens, they credit the vinegar. But the real cause is usually overall lifestyle adjustment, not the vinegar itself. This is called the attribution error in dieting. Chapter 5. What studies actually show. Scientific studies on vinegar are often misused online. Here's what controlled research actually suggests. Some short-term effects may include small reductions in post-meal glucose, slight increase in satiety in certain individuals, minor changes in insulin response. But importantly, there is no strong evidence that vinegar burns fat directly, causes significant long-term weight loss, or outperforms basic calorie control. In fact, when compared to diet and exercise, its effect size is extremely small. Chapter 6. Why it feels like a hack. Humans love shortcuts, so when a simple routine appears, 1 tablespoon vinegar before meals, no effort required, the brain immediately labels it as easy fat loss solution. But fat loss does not respond to simplicity. It responds to consistency. That's why real fat loss comes from sustained calorie control, protein intake, activity levels, sleep quality, not single ingredients. Chapter 7. Side effects nobody talks about. While often considered natural, apple cider vinegar is still acidic. Excess or improper use can lead to tooth enamel erosion, throat irritation, stomach discomfort in sensitive individuals, digestive issues if taken undiluted. So even the safe natural hack is not risk-free, especially when overused. End of part 1. Teaser. So far we've uncovered something important. Apple cider vinegar does not burn fat. At best, it slightly influences digestion and blood sugar. But in part 2, we go deeper into the real question. Why do so many people swear it worked for them? And the answer has nothing to do with chemistry and everything to do with human behavior. In part 1, we establish something important. Apple cider vinegar is not a fat-burning solution. At best, it has small effects on digestion and blood sugar. But now comes the more interesting question. Because if the science is so limited, why do so many people swear it worked for them? Why do testimonials sound so convincing? Why does it feel like something is happening? To understand that, we have to leave the chemistry of the body and enter the psychology of dieting. Because this is where the real illusion begins. Chapter 8. The placebo effect in fat loss. The placebo effect is not imaginary. It is real biology influenced by belief. When someone believes a method will work, the brain can subtly change behavior without conscious awareness. So when someone starts drinking apple cider vinegar daily, they often begin doing things like eating slightly smaller portions, avoiding sugary snacks more often, becoming more mindful about meals, drinking more water overall. These changes are not caused by vinegar. They are caused by intention to improve health. But the brain links the results to the vinegar. So the narrative becomes, I lost weight because of apple cider vinegar, even though the real driver was behavior change. Chapter 9. The invisible diet shift effect. This is one of the most misunderstood parts of dieting. When people add a health habit like vinegar, they don't just add it. They often unconsciously adjust everything else. For example, before vinegar routine, casual eating, more snacks, less awareness. After vinegar routine, slightly more structured meals, reduced junk intake, increased disciplined mindset. So what actually changed? Not metabolism, not fat burning, but total daily behavior patterns. And that is what actually creates fat loss. Chapter 10. Why people see quick results. When someone starts any new health routine, the first changes are usually water weight fluctuations, reduced bloating, improved digestion timing, temporary calorie reduction. These changes can create fast scale drops, but here's the critical misunderstanding. Water loss is not fat loss. If someone loses 1 to 2 kilograms in the first week of any diet change, it is usually glycogen depletion, water shifts, reduced sodium intake, smaller food volume, not actual fat melting. But the scale doesn't explain that, so the mind fills in the gap. This is working fast, and apple cider vinegar gets the credit. Chapter 11. The health routine trap. Another reason vinegar feels effective is because of routine stacking. People rarely use it alone. They usually combine it with calorie awareness, intermittent fasting, gym routines, healthier food choices. So vinegar becomes part of a larger transformation. But psychologically, humans isolate one visible action and ignore the invisible system around it. So vinegar becomes the symbol of progress, even though it's just one small piece. Chapter 12. What science actually confirms. Let's simplify real research findings. Apple cider vinegar may slightly slow stomach emptying, mildly reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes, slightly increase satiety in some individuals. But importantly, these effects are small, inconsistent, not strong enough to drive fat loss alone. No major clinical evidence shows significant fat reduction, long-term weight loss superiority, metabolic fat burning effects. So scientifically, it is a minor dietary influence, not a fat loss mechanism. Chapter 13. Why calories still control everything. Despite all trends and hacks, one principle remains unchanged. Energy balance controls fat loss. If you consistently eat more calories than you burn, fat gain. Fewer calories than you burn, fat loss. Apple cider vinegar does not change this equation. It does not remove calories from food, significantly increase metabolism, or override energy balance. At most, it may slightly influence appetite in some people, but appetite control alone is not fat loss. Chapter 14. Why the mind prefers hacks. Humans prefer simple solutions because simple solutions feel easier, faster, more controllable. Drink this before meals feels easier than tracking calories, improving diet consistency, exercising regularly, sleeping properly. So the brain gravitates toward shortcuts, even when they are not effective. This is why fat-burning hacks always go viral, even when science stays unchanged. End of Part 2 teaser. So far, we've uncovered something important. Apple cider vinegar does not burn fat. It only creates small biological and psychological effects that are often misinterpreted as fat loss. But in Part 3, we go to the final layer. What actually works for fat loss? Why fat-burning foods don't exist? And the real truth behind every viral diet hack. And most importantly, we answer the final question. If vinegar doesn't melt fat, what actually does? In Part 1 and Part 2, we broke down the myth. We saw that apple cider vinegar does not burn fat, does not melt belly fat, and does not meaningfully change metabolism. We also uncovered something more important. Most of the results people see come from behavior changes, not vinegar itself. Now we reach the final question. Because even if vinegar is not the answer, people still want to know, then what actually works for fat loss? And the answer is simpler and less exciting than most people expect. But it is also the truth that never changes. Chapter 15. The real mechanism of fat loss. Fat loss is not a mystery. It is not a detox process. It is not a chemical burning reaction from special foods. It is not triggered by one ingredient. Fat loss happens when your body does one thing. It consistently uses more energy than it consumes. This is called energy balance. When your body needs energy and food intake is lower than demand, it starts using stored fat as fuel, not because of vinegar, not because of detox drinks, but because of basic physiology. Chapter 16. Why fat-burning foods don't exist. One of the biggest myths in nutrition is the idea of fat-burning foods. Let's be clear, no food melts fat. Some foods can slightly increase satiety, reduce appetite, or improve digestion efficiency. But none of them override energy balance, because even if a food boosts metabolism slightly or reduces blood sugar spikes, the effect is still too small to create meaningful fat loss alone. For example, apple cider vinegar might slightly influence digestion, but it cannot cancel extra calories, overeating habits, or sedentary lifestyle patterns. So the idea of a single fat-burning ingredient is scientifically unsupported. Chapter 17. Why people keep believing it works, even after evidence shows otherwise. People still believe in apple cider vinegar for fat loss. Why? Because of three powerful psychological factors. 1. The control illusion. People want something simple they can control. One drink, one habit, one routine. It feels easier than changing lifestyle. 2. Short-term results. Early weight changes are usually water loss, reduced bloating, eating less due to new routine. But the brain mislabels this as fat loss. 3. Confirmation bias. If someone expects results, they interpret any change as proof. Even unrelated changes get assigned to vinegar. Chapter 18. What actually works, real fat loss factors. If we remove myths and focus only on science, real fat loss comes from a combination of 1. Calorie control, eating slightly fewer calories than you burn consistently. 2. Protein intake. Helps preserve muscle and improve satiety. 3. Activity levels. Walking, movement, and exercise increase energy output. 4. Food quality for sustainability. Not for magic fat burning, but for appetite control, energy stability, digestion comfort. 5. Sleep and hormones. Poor sleep increases hunger signals and cravings. None of these include vinegar, because no single ingredient replaces these systems. Chapter 19. Where apple cider vinegar does fit. This is important for balance. Apple cider vinegar is not useless. It may slightly improve post-meal glucose response, help some people feel mildly fuller, act as a small behavioral reminder for dieting discipline. So it can be a minor supportive habit, but not a fat loss strategy. Chapter 20. The real danger of hack culture. The biggest risk of trends like apple cider vinegar isn't physical harm, it is mental distraction. Because when people chase hacks, they delay real habits, they avoid consistency, they ignore fundamentals, and months or years pass chasing shortcuts instead of building sustainable systems. That is the real cost, not vinegar itself, but misplaced focus. Final chapter, the simple truth. If we strip everything down to its core, fat loss has always been simple. Eat slightly less than you burn. Move your body regularly. Sleep properly. Stay consistent. That's it. No detox drink changes that. No vinegar shortcut overrides that. And no viral trend replaces that. Final closing. The real lie was never the vinegar. So what was the lie? It wasn't that apple cider vinegar exists. It wasn't that it has zero effects. The real lie is believing that fat loss can come from something simple, external, and effortless. Because the body doesn't work through shortcuts. It works through systems. And once you understand that, you stop searching for magic solutions and start building real ones. Final line. So if you take anything from this video, let it be this. Apple cider vinegar won't melt fat, but understanding how your body actually works